This next class is, without a doubt, the most important class or string of classes of sophomore year. That was another big issue. I think one person in our crew just... And when NYU has the equipment that you're all supposed to be using, what do you film on? So you or someone you know or someone you love wants to go to film school, and that's all fine and well, but wait, there's a pandemic happening. My name's Alex. I'm a junior at NYU Tisch Film and Television, and I'm going to tell you exactly how film school operates during a pandemic. Now, before I get started, I want to say I'm not blaming NYU for anything I'm saying here. I know that they're trying their best during these
unprecedented times.
They got to change the curriculum, and this is my own personal experience. This is exactly how film school has been for me. So during mid-March, when Corona was just starting to hit the US, there were rumors circulating that NYU was just going to resort to online classes from home. My roommate at the time worked for a very small section of the university and received this email on March 9th. Greetings, student employees. You have heard or will soon hear about how NYU will be shifting to a remote instruction model in response to COVID-19 starting Wednesday. This means classes will be held over Zoom in most cases. He immediately sent it to me, and as soon as I read it, I knew everything was going to change. I called up friends at Tisch and posted on social media, and within 6 days, we were packed and leaving. So at this time, I was taking 5 classes. Music for film and TV, largely lecture-based. You take a look at how music is used in films. The class isn't too focused on composing music for films, as it is putting you in the shoes of different directors over the years and learning from their relationships with their composers of their films. Love Actually. This is the most popular class at NYU. I think I got in on the waitlist somehow. I don't even know. It was my only non-film class and my only gen ed that semester, so I'm not going to go into it too much. The class takes a look at exactly how humans fall in love, the science behind it, the neurology of it. Honestly, I would recommend this class to anybody. I think it's a great class, and my specific professor was super engaging. Preparing the screenplay takes you through the entire process of writing a screenplay. You analyze screenplays and compare them to their respective films, and by the end of the year, you have the first few pages of your own feature film and the rest plotted out and ready to be pitched. This next class is, without a doubt, the most important class or string of classes of sophomore year. Sight and sound. See, the way NYU has their curriculum set up, freshman year is the very basics of filmmaking. How to use a camera, how to use Premiere Pro, how to edit, how to use the very basics of sound designing techniques on Pro Tools. Sophomore year is where you get to make short films that you get to put on your resume or on your reel. This is all done in the class chain Sight and Sound. Now, there are 3 different Sight and Sound classes you have the option to take. You're only really able to take 2 of them unless you do a January semester, or you take something over the summer. But out of a 2 semester year, you're only able to take 2 of the 3 classes they offer: Sight and Sound Film, Sight and Sound Documentary, and Sight and Sound Studio. These classes are so important to students that NYU actually strategically makes them a priority in each schedule for students. It's unavoidable to take this class. Every student in sophomore year that's taking Sight and Sound knows that Sight and Sound is the most important class they're taking, and every professor in sophomore year teaching sophomores knows that Sight and Sound is also the most important class they're taking. They know that whatever class they're teaching them is inevitably going to take a backseat to whatever Sight and Sound is giving them. Each Sight and Sound class lasts 1 semester, and we're going to be talking about documentary. Documentary is the only Sight and Sound class that I had during quarantine. If any of you guys want to see any more videos related to NYU or just film school in general, let me know in the comments. So, Sight and Sound Documentary, a standard documentary course that most sophomores take. Everybody gets in crews of 4 or 5 people. They're given the exact same equipment, and everybody's teched on how to use it. Students present 1 new short documentary film every 2 weeks, and we get critiqued and graded on those films every 2 weeks. Depending on the professor you have, you can be asked not to use color or sound or whatever. This is to try and help hone your storytelling abilities to just the substance of what's on the screen. The class occurred twice a week for a 9-hour block every day it was taught. There's a 4-hour block in the morning sometimes just for filming. That's to ensure that you never have an excuse that you said you could not film that week. And more importantly, every single person on your crew has that same exact availability, so nobody's ever not free during that time. So COVID hit, and what happened to these classes? I'll breeze by the first 3 classes and get into what will impact you the most if you're an incoming sophomore, or really an incoming freshman. Sophomore and freshman classes have a lot of parallels, especially Sight and Sound. Sophomore's Sight and Sound is very similar to freshman's Frame and Sequence. It's just a lot more basic in Frame and Sequence. You're using a lot less of the tools that you would in sophomore year. So once I got home, here's how things changed. All of the lecture courses, Music for Film and TV, Love Actually, they were exactly how you would expect normal lecture courses to be. Not much changed, except that we weren't in person anymore, we were over Zoom, and I was no longer getting separated for talking to people in class. I'm not salty. Preparing the screenplay was also very similar. Instead of handing in our screenplays, we would email them. And instead of awkwardly reading our screenplays during class, we would awkwardly read them over Zoom. Sight and Sound. So, the thing is, Sight and Sound based its entire curriculum around the fact that every student would be treated equal to another. See, this is a problem because when you have 4 crew members scattered across the country and sometimes around the world, how do you work with them? And when NYU has the equipment that you're all supposed to be using to even the playing field, what do you film on? Well, this is what NYU sent to our professor, who then sent it to us. Through the perseverance of our students will now be allowed to... I love how they clearly started to type out our students and then went back for some reason to add through the perseverance of... as if that's just too important to leave out. By the way, NYU, these are jokes. Through the perseverance of... our students will now be allowed to film assignments and projects with their cell phones and or any other equipment they themselves own and have on them. There are some strict rules they must follow and you must communicate to them. So I guess the professor must communicate to them. Students must work strictly within the CDC guidelines and any local guidelines for COVID-19 prevention. Students should work on their own or only with people they are already living with and not isolated from. No bringing in anyone from outside. Students may only use cell phones or personal equipment that is currently available to them in their home. The problem with that is that so many people at NYU have varying degrees of equipment at their house. Like, I have a DSLR, but like I know a lot of people that don't. They just have a phone, which is great, but like that's not why they came to NYU, is to film on their phone. Use of departmental equipment is not permitted. Not everyone currently has NYU equipment with them. That was another big issue. I think one person in our crew just took the equipment home with them, like probably by accident. They just like had it and they didn't know how to give it back to them in time because there's like a whole process you have to go through. They probably just didn't have the time to do that, so they were like, you know what, fuck it, let me take this. Like, I cannot blame them. That was an issue. I think a lot of people had the equipment and NYU was like, how the fuck do we get this back? If students have any questions or concerns, they should contact their teachers promptly for guidance. Now, of course, this is silly, because how the fuck are they going to enforce this? And I'm sure people did break the rules because it's so easy to be broken, but what's NYU going to do? They can't go to your house and see like who's using what or if they're exchanging equipment or not. And to my knowledge, professors were pretty lenient about this. I just don't think they thought that punishing students during a pandemic that had never happened before for using lighting equipment instead of natural light would be fair. So the semester went on and we all made documentaries. The curriculum was changed, so instead of, I think, 5 projects altogether, we made 2 at home in addition to the one that we already made at school. So how did these projects come out? Pretty much as you expect. I also specialize in editing, so when my first project came out, it was no surprise to anyone that instead of fancy camera movements, it was just a lot of editing. Just a shit ton of editing. What I lacked in cinematography skills at the time, I made up for with infographics. Everyone loves infographics, you know? There's literally a fucking channel called The Infographics Show. It's on my channel right now if you want to go watch. I talked about how COVID surprised the whole world and exactly what we can do to not have it happen again in the future. The second documentary I did, I'm probably not going to post. It was just really personal, and I interviewed one of my family members, and it was just kind of emotionally exhausting. To give you a sense of how the other films in the class turned out, it was just so clear that everyone was motivated to make films even after COVID hit, which was great. Everyone used the equipment that they had at their disposal, whether it was iPhones or DSLRs or like really fancy cameras or laptop web cameras. They were all very different, but one thing was constant throughout everything. Everyone was able to craft a very thought-provoking narrative with what they had, especially because there was so much political and social chaos going on at the time. COVID just hitting, obviously, and the election that was going to come up, and the Black Lives Matter movement. Everything was just kind of slowly coming to a head. So what is your takeaway from this? I'll go over the pros and the cons. Pros, low stress. Because there were only 2 more projects due that semester instead of 4, people just had more time to work on each project, and they had more time to put effort into each project, or they just had more time to collect themselves and work on themselves. The rating was much more lenient for obvious reasons. Another pro is that the curriculum itself changed to meet the needs of the students. There weren't as many limitations put on the students for obvious reasons again. Like, people just didn't have shit to film on. There was much more of a variety of what people could make documentaries on, which was actually great. I wish that was the actual curriculum, but you know, that's honestly about it for the pros. Yeah. Shocking. COVID did not make things better. Cons, everything had to be done by you. I mean, I love doing a lot of things by myself, but it's great to have one other person you can use to set up the camera. We didn't have that. For me, I love editing. I know for a lot of people that it's really tedious and they don't like doing it. It's boring for a lot of people. Sight and sound just generally frowns on people editing other people's work, but I think during COVID that just couldn't happen at all, even if people wanted to. Obviously, not being able to use NYU equipment kind of sucked. Before COVID, we all had the same even playing field, and then after COVID, it just really messed with the qualities of each project, which it sucks because we all are at very talented storytelling calibers. It just so happens that not everyone has the exact same equipment. Like, I only just got this DSLR. If I didn't just get this DSLR, I would be fucked last semester. Another con is that there just was absolutely no collaboration, just none, which is probably the biggest con of all. A huge element of film school is being able to collaborate with people, and we just saw none of that in class. Also, while I said people were motivated to make films, nobody was motivated to be in class. Like, you could just tell. It's a Zoom class. Like, I don't know anyone that likes going to Zoom class. Our professor would always try to, like, amp us up, and it didn't work. I mean, understandably, we were all kind of tired of everything, but it just sucks because a whole part of that class is getting the feedback from your professor and from different students, and we lost that. So that was the end of my sophomore year at NYU. It went great. You know, as great as Zoom NYU could be. I can't really talk about my fall NYU 2020 experience for a number of reasons, which I will explain shortly. But before that, I will leave everyone with this. If you want to go to film school for the insight and the knowledge, apply now. If you want to get your degree because you just want to get your degree and go off and get a job, and you already kind of have yourself established in the film community just like as a low-level person, but you just want to get that extra jump start, apply now. Like, this shit shouldn't even matter to you. You can just come. But if you're going to film school because you want to meet like-minded students, make connections, network, collaborate, and just fucking make films, I'd wait if you can. Also, there was this TikTok trend going around this past semester.
I'm staying here at the most expensive restaurant in DC almost. Enjoying my meal.
What the fuck? Apparently NYU cut ties with the company that made that food, but that was just hilarious. Like, what the fuck? Also, I jumped in on it. Follow me on TikTok. Haha, I don't post any quality. That's the end of the information shit. If you want to click away right now, I would not blame. Oh my god, what the fuck is my hair doing? So I went part-time this past semester because myself and 16 other film students, mainly from NYU, all went to Vermont to make a shit ton of short films for the past 3 months. We lived in one house, and we just made films for 3 months straight. In fact, we only just ended this recently. I only got back, today's the 27th, I only got back 4 days ago. We went from September 1st to November 23rd. We all took tests before we got there to make sure we were all COVID negative, and while we were there, we constantly monitored ourselves to make sure that we weren't at risk and we weren't putting other people at risk. I'm so excited to be able to talk about some of the things that we've been working on, but until then, please go follow our Instagram at ReelHouseVT, REEL House VT. If you're interested at all, you don't have to, like, you're interested in that, because I think we made some good stuff. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to see any more videos about like film school-y type things, leave me a comment in the comments down below. Also, comment your most positive memory during quarantine. Like, let's get some positivity into quarantine. Alright guys, I hope you guys are having happy and safe holidays, and I'll see you guys in the next video.